To the back. Alright, so the question is, why is the common question? Why can men marry non-Muslim women and not vice versa? Well, I'm just going to repeat what my dad said. Yeah. And I saw that he was having an argument with one of his wives, and he said, well, when the argument was going forward, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but he said, after back and forth, but you do this, but you. And then my dad just stayed there like Clint Eastwood. I think he used to watch these movies or something back in the days. And he said, we are not equal. That's it. I mean, we do believe in equality, by the way. The assumption, obviously, of the question is that there should be identicality of roles. But we believe in equality of value, but not identicality of roles. The Islamic paradigm is not in sync with second wave feminism. If someone expects Islam to be in line with second wave feminism, they will be cognitively dissonant or totally disillusioned. The second wave feministic assumption is that despite anatomical differences, biological differences, and or psychological differences, or sexual differences, that man and woman should be equal politically, socially, and economically. And we say that's true to, generally speaking, but our exceptions are different to the second wave feministic conception. And if you look at what Plato said, he says, actually it's Aristotle, he says something very interesting. He said that like things should be treated alike. Like things should be treated like, and therefore things which are not like should not be treated the same. So there is a collective temperament, or there is a continuity within males, or there are continuities, collective temperamental continuities that exist between men and women, which Islam says actually they should be respected, and there should be provision for that. So for example, Islam actually has some unequal laws that favor women's responsibility over men's rights. For example, in custody of children, which is a big issue, huge. For example, in being the beneficiary of money, like actually not needing to provide and so on. These are things which Islam allows. So it's a complementarian system, it's not an egalitarian one. The egalitarian system says that men and women should be treated the same in every aspect, in every sphere. I was reading a book from Ngozi, black feminist from Nigeria. She's not a radical feminist. I mean, she's very reasonable in her approach, to be fair. And the book is called The Feminist Manifesto, yeah? And in the very first or second or third page, she says something to the effect of, men and women should be treated exactly the same in every sphere except for breastfeeding. I was thinking, okay, that's a claim. But if that's a claim, then it needs to be substantiated with evidence. Because going back to the Apeka structure, the assumption of the question is that men and women should have exactly the same duties. But that's not the assumption which we operate by. We operate by an assumption of equality of value. Yes, the Quran states, إِنِّي لَا أُضِيعُ عَمَلَ عَمَلٍ مِنْكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى بَعْضُكُم مِّن بَعْضٍ. That Allah does not go to waste any deed of a doer, male or female, and that both of them are from one another. So there is an equality there. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا النِّسَاءُ شِقَائِقُ الرِّجَالِ, which does mean general equality, that men are generally equal to women. It does mean that. Shiqaiq means twins, but it also means musawiyat. It does mean that. However, the exceptions are defined differently. And so the institution of motherhood, for example, where in Islam is elevated much higher than in second wave feminism, where in second wave feminism people like de Beauvoir, in the second sex, she literally rubbishes the institution and says that you shouldn't have children. And she herself never had children. De Beauvoir, Simone. But interestingly, by the way, I don't want to go into de Beauvoir. I've read her biography. It's very interesting reading her autobiography. She had this fling with this guy called Jean-Paul Sartre. And the way do you know what she said about him? She said something to the effect of, he was my superior in every way. I was thinking, how could the mother of second wave feminism say something like that? My wife has never said anything like that. She's meant to be a complementarian traditionalist. She's my superior in every way, or something like overcompensatory like that. I've actually not heard it from a single Muslim woman in my life. But de Beauvoir said it. the height of hierarchical language from the mother of second wave feminism. And by the way, she was preparing a house and a flat for John Paul Sartre. She was cleaning it up, doing the housework and all this kind of thing. She admits this. I was shocked. Honestly, I was absolutely shocked that she was saying this stuff in her autobiography. The point of the matter is that we do believe in this. There is clear, ample evidence that there are continual temperamental differences between men and women in some spheres, and Islam respects that and therefore gives provision to both men and women. So the case of why men can marry a Christian or Jewish, it's not all non-Muslim by the way, it's Christians and Jews in particular, the Quran doesn't state why. But if we were to use the modern day psychological literature and hazard a guess, we'd be speculative in so doing. We may say it's because women are more likely, according to the literature, to be assimilative to the man's religion than the opposite. That's clear. That is absolutely clear in the literature. So if you look at the data, cross-culturally, when a husband and wife get married, the woman usually assimilates to the husband's religion. And one of the objectives of Islam, because Islam's job is not to be consistent with feminism, but to be self-consistent, is hifdud-din, that the protection of religion. So in a situation where there's more likelihood from the union that the Christian will become a Muslim, it becomes allowable. Maybe that's the reason. But in a situation where the opposite is true, then it becomes disallowable. Because Islam does not need to conform to the feministic agenda, but needs to conform with its own objectives. It has missionary objectives. Islam has missionary objectives. And so therefore, for that reason and for other reasons, it would seem inappropriate therefore. And I was actually speaking to someone about polygamy, because a man can marry 4 wives at the same time. Which I think is, I've made the argument that it actually gives more access to women. See, how's that? Because I, as a Muslim man, cannot approach a married Muslim woman. They're off the market for me. But a Muslim woman can approach a Muslim married man for marriage. Therefore, her options are more than the options of the man. Her access is more. That's a fact. Now, you might say, this is not whatever. Doesn't matter what you think. Sorry. Because this doesn't have creedal disproving implications either way. Whatever the wisdom may be, it doesn't say, Islam doesn't allow polygamy for women, or polyamory, but it allows it for polygyny for men. Therefore, Islam is false. How does it work? Because feminism is true. That's the assumption. Going back to Africa. So we don't agree with that assumption. It's a false assumption. We believe our system is superior to feminism. This is really the crux of the matter. We believe our system is actually superior. We believe feminism is false. Second wave feministic discourse has been cracked. But by the way, it's not just me who believes it. Feminists themselves have retracted their position, by the way. Betty Friedan, she wrote the famous book in 1963. It's called The Feminine Mystique. Very famously, yeah? She said that a woman in the house, doing the housework and so on, is in a comfortable concentration camp. Many of you have heard this, right? Which I think was ridiculous. And many feminists still say this line till today. But people don't realize that Betty Friedan wrote another book called The Second Stage. And in that book, she retracted that statement. She goes, I think that was a bit extreme for me to say that. Germaine Greer, who was one of the founding mothers of second wave feminism, she's still alive. Do you know what? She wrote a book in the 1980s called The Whole Woman. And do you know what she states? Because before she was talking about not having children, the same kind of thing that Simone de Beauvoir was talking about. Because children is an institution and the family is an institution which will shackle you. She wrote this book called The Whole Woman in the 1980s, and she said that I mourn for my unborn babies. Meaning, I am regretful for the fact that I didn't have children. I mourn because it's as if she killed them. It's a very powerful, one of the most powerful things I've heard any feminist ever say. Now, I actually started to grow respect for that woman because she was always a contrarian. Now she's attacking third wave feminists and transgenders and all that. She's always a contrarian. The point being is, this has failed. The system is the biggest study that has ever been done that I know of. Blanche Flower and Oswald, 2000. Which was a longitudinal study which took place from the 1960s to 2000. which asked women in Britain and America, asked both of these women to track their experiences, and almost unanimously, not unanimously, but the vast majority, there was a trend towards depression and manic episodes. Why? This was after the reform and the civil rights and so on. Because now they have a double burden. Because now women are told to go out, earn money and come in and be mothers as well. And that makes women, or has made women, according to this study, break down in mental depression, break down the highest levels of anxiety that has ever been recorded in the modern time has happened after the second wave feministic reforms. So much so, by the way, interestingly, that Betty Friedan herself, who wrote The Feminine Mystique, she done studies herself, sociological ones, in the book The Second Stage, and she herself tracked that women were more depressed because of after the reforms. And the point I'm making is, it's a failed experiment. It's a failed experiment. I was just having a conversation with one person, his name is Nicholas Wolfinger. He's seen as one of the leading experts in demography. And I asked him, it's actually on my YouTube channel, it doesn't have that many views, but people are really interested in this stuff, right? I asked him, what are the most stable families for children? What are the most advantageous families for children in terms of education, in terms of lack of criminality, etc.? You know what he said? He said he wrote a book called The Cycle of Divorce. He wrote many books. He said, according to the data that he's been analyzing, that it's traditionalist, complementarian, conservative families, nuclear families, where there is a breadwinner man and there's that kind of structure. That's what he said. And he even surprised me by telling me that within that category, there's a category of even more successful people, successful children, or advantageous, which is the category of religious people. He said that, to be fair, you can see this, I'm not putting words in his mouth. He said it doesn't have to be any particular religion, but so long as it's ritual and it's consistent. So the data is firmly against feminism, firmly against it. In so much as the egalitarian system has proven to be a failure for women's rights, a failure for women's health, and a failure for children's rights. A complete failure for children's rights. And so, sorry, I just went into a tirade, but in a nutshell, to answer your question, the assumption is one of egalitarianism between men and women, and which we don't believe in. And we have good reason, as I've just shown, to not believe in it. We believe in there should be exceptions, there should be, and that is in the interest, if you want stable families and lack of or less criminality in society and more educated people. I think all of us, whether we're religious or not, would want those things. Then the nuclear, conservative, whatever you want to call it, traditionalist, complementarian family, the religious one, in fact, is the best option. Does that answer the question? Do you want to, come back. Say that again, sorry, I couldn't hear.
Doesn't he diminish the faith of the woman in Islam?
It does. Many women are, and just like many men as well, it does diminish the faith of many women in Islam. I agree with that. But just because something has a faith diminishing effect, it doesn't mean it's false. Because that's fallacious. Like, I could be a flat earthist. Okay? And I can believe the flatness of the earth. The earth is flat. And if I approach certain, modern cosmologists that say that the earth is round, I might not take them seriously because I have a presupposition, which is maybe the majority opinion here, false. So just because something has a faith diminishing effect, it doesn't mean it's false necessarily. It doesn't have that consequence. You see the point? Yeah.